You're back with us on America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
And I'm John Bachman. J.D., let's not lose sight of what's happening in Eastern Europe and Ukraine right now. A recent article by Doug French, contributing editor at Casey Research, he highlighted Vladimir Putin's financial acumen as the main reason why Russia has been able to outmaneuver the West recently. According to Doug, Vladimir Putin has become the Western world's very own Shylock. After all, how many of the world's leaders would have the foresight to structure a loan as a private sector Eurobond? Russia had the Ukrainian government float $3 billion in bonds dominated in euros, which the Russian government then proceeded to buy. The Russians had a provision written into the bond that if the Ukraine's debt to GDP level reached 60%, Russia could call the bonds for immediate payment. Ukraine has multiple outstanding Eurobond debts to different countries, so defaulting on Russia's loan would severely impact the price of their other debts. Putin's foresight ensures that any U.S. aid money will eventually find its way to Moscow.
Pretty crafty. Doug French joins us now via Skype. Doug, we welcome you to America's Forum.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
We're so happy to have you. And Doug, your article points out that Putin has been undermining the United States for over a decade. Just how exactly has he managed to do this?
Well, it really started a year before he took power in the late 90s. Russia went ahead and defaulted on their debt and cleaned up their balance sheet. And then what they began to do is trade their oil, which they have plenty of, for gold. So they're the biggest buyer of gold in the world. They're the biggest producer of oil in the world. And there's this interesting anecdote in Hank Paulson's book, On the Brink, which I talk about in the article, where Hank Paulson is at the Beijing Olympics with his family, and he's told about a scheme by the Russians to combine with the Chinese to dump all their Fannie and Freddie securities. And the idea here, of course, was to help bring down the U.S. Housing market. Well, you know, Hank didn't feel like he should tell the president. He went ahead and got back from the Olympics to let him know what was going on. And he, in his book, he said it never happened. And, you know, there's one of Putin's people has said it never happened. But when you look at not what they say, but actually what they did dump their Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac securities, and U.S. government had to take over Fannie and Freddie, and then we had a financial crisis, which that had a lot to do with that. Well, so over time, Putin has made all the right moves while the United States has been asleep at the switch.
Well, I want to go back to this because I have to tell you, Doug, last time I was on the campaign trail, I had some people, almost forensic economists, I guess we'd call them, coming to me saying, listen, Congressman, the fact is the Russians and the Chinese worked to engineer our meltdown. Doug, do you agree with that? You're just relaying the whole Hank Paulson in Beijing scenario and what subsequently happened. How are Putin's fingerprints all over that infamous American economic meltdown of 2008?
Well, I'm not sure you can put the whole blame on Putin, but he certainly was able to maybe it was the straw that broke the camel's.
Well, we obviously are having a little bit of problem with Skype. To complete Doug's remark, the straw that broke the camel's back. But it is interesting, and what we lose sight of, and we're working to reconnect the Skype, if we can, with Doug French. As we're dealing with the limitations of technology, maybe this is a metaphor for what transpired with the infamous meltdown, John, because you have the situation, just imagine Hank Paulson, very capable guy, in Beijing at the Olympics. He waits, despite the fact Hank Paulson, an Eagle Scout, and the scouts say be prepared. He didn't pick up the phone and call George W. Bush, and so you had at least part of this. And Doug, I appreciate what you're saying. We're glad we've reinitiated the Skype contact with you now. So the bottom line is we can't put this all off on Putin, but he is someone who is who has taken a very active role economically to make things work to his advantage.
And Doug, you paint this picture of Vladimir Putin and these very sophisticated financial schemes that he put into place here. Now, is this Putin's own financial education bearing fruit for him in this case, or is it the people around him coming up with these very sophisticated plans here in place to manipulate the global economy?
I think it's pretty safe to say that it's the people around him, but I make the point in the article that while Barack Obama was going to high school in Hawaii and then coming back and going to college, and you know, our president has written quite a bit about what he did in college, and shall we say that's a little different formation than Vladimir Putin, who was on the front lines of the Cold War as a KGB spy in Eastern Europe. So I think he was savvy enough to have his central bank start buying gold at less than $500 an ounce when the price of oil exploded. And so they've made all the right moves while the United States continues to get further and further in debt, continues to bankrupt itself. The United States has no business trying to be the policeman of the world when they can't even police their own balance sheet, when they can't even police their own budget. And I think that Vladimir Putin is very well aware of the Achilles heel, the United States, and its finances.
Well,
Now,
Doug, let me move from nation states to Putin personally. Doug, it's been said that Putin may be the richest of all the Russians. Do we know how much money he's taken for himself, how much he's pilfered personally?
Well, I wouldn't have any idea and wouldn't trust any numbers that would come out of there. But all the work that I've done, any head of any gas or oil or mineral extraction business over there is good friends with Putin. You have to assume that he has an ownership interest. I understand that he's the largest owner of Gazprom, which is the huge gas monopoly.
Wow. So he's the largest owner of Gazprom. So if we get our LNG into those markets, that's one way to hurt him personally. Doug, we're short on time. We want to thank you for your insights, and we look forward to visiting with you again very, very soon. Your comments encouraged and welcome via social media. Here's the way to get in touch with us. There's more to come on America's Forum.
It's a region of the world that has known little peace since the beginnings of recorded history. But in September of 1978,